Hello, everybody. Today we're going to explore a topic that shapes the very foundation of our democracy, but often happens behind the scenes: redistricting. Redistricting is the process of drawing the boundaries that define our political districts. These lines determine which voters are grouped together and, ultimately, who gets to represent us in government. It's a process that affects every level of government, from local school boards to Congress. Imagine your state as a giant pizza. Each slice represents a district, and each district gets to choose its own representative. The way you slice that pizza can change who has a seat at the table and who gets left out. The shape and size of each slice can have a huge impact on the voices that are heard in our government. Every 10 years, after the census counts how many people live where, these district lines are redrawn. The goal is to make sure each district has roughly the same number of people so that everyone's vote counts equally. This principle is called one person, one vote. It's meant to keep our democracy fair and balanced as populations grow and shift. But here's where things get complicated. The people in power, usually state legislators, are often the ones in charge of drawing these maps. That means the process can become highly political, with fierce debates and high stakes. The way the lines are drawn can determine which party has the advantage for the next decade. Sometimes, the party in control draws the lines to help themselves stay in power. This is called gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is when district boundaries are manipulated to give one party an unfair advantage, often resulting in strange, winding shapes that don't make much sense except for political gain. One common tactic is called packing, cramming as many opposition voters as possible into a few districts. This dilutes their influence in the rest of the state, making it easier for the party in power to win more seats. Another tactic is cracking, splitting up opposition voters across many districts so their votes are spread thin and don't have much impact anywhere. Both strategies can dramatically change election outcomes. Redistricting isn't just about political parties. It's also about making sure communities, especially minority groups, get fair representation. When lines are drawn unfairly, entire neighborhoods can lose their voice in government, and important issues can be ignored. Right now, Texas is at the center of this national debate. The state's rapid growth and changing demographics have made redistricting especially contentious, with both sides fighting for a say in how the lines are drawn. Recently, Republicans in Texas have proposed a new district map that could reshape the state's political landscape for years to come. The new lines could determine which communities have a voice and which are left out. In response, Democratic lawmakers took the extraordinary step of leaving the state to prevent a vote on the new map. Their goal was to block what they see as an unfair and undemocratic plan and to draw national attention to the stakes of redistricting. At its core, redistricting is a story about power, fairness, and the rules that shape our democracy. The way we draw these lines affects every election, every community, and every voice. Understanding redistricting is the first step to making sure our democracy truly represents all of us. In July 2025, over 50 Texas Democratic lawmakers made a bold and unprecedented move. They left the state in a coordinated effort to block legislation. This wasn't just a symbolic gesture, it was a calculated act of political resistance, designed to halt the legislative process in its tracks. The lawmakers knew the stakes were high, but they believed their actions were necessary to protect the rights of Texas voters. Their destination was Illinois, hundreds of miles away from Texas law enforcement and the reach of state officials. By fleeing to another state, they put themselves out of the jurisdiction of Texas authorities, making it impossible for the legislature to compel their return by force. Their absence left the Texas House without the quorum needed to conduct business. With so many seats empty, the legislature was unable to vote on the controversial new redistricting map, effectively bringing the session to a standstill. For these lawmakers, this was far from a vacation. It was a strategic protest, a last-resort tactic to halt what they saw as a betrayal of voters' trust and a threat to fair representation in Texas. The risks they faced were real and immediate: threats of arrest, hefty fines, and harsh criticism from political opponents and the public. Some Republican leaders even called for law enforcement to track them down and bring them back to the Capitol by force. But the Democrats argued that the stakes were simply too high to remain and watch the map pass. They insisted that the proposed changes would silence the voices of many Texans, especially those in minority communities, and undermine the very foundation of democracy. From their temporary base in Illinois, the lawmakers held press conferences and gave interviews, hoping to draw national attention to their cause. They wanted to put pressure on Republicans to negotiate and to rally support from across the country. Their plan was to stay away for the entire special session, effectively paralyzing the Texas government and preventing any legislative action on the redistricting bill. Each day away increased the pressure on both sides. What began as a state-level standoff quickly escalated into a national debate about voting rights, democracy, and the lengths lawmakers will go to defend their principles. The eyes of the nation were now on Texas, as the struggle over voting rights took center stage. How does leaving the state stop a vote? It's all about quorum. In Texas, at least 100 of 150 House members must be present to do business. With over 50 Democrats gone, Republicans can't reach that number. No quorum means no votes, no laws, no progress. Republicans are furious, threatening arrests and fines to force Democrats back. But Democrats say protecting democracy is worth the risk. Their absence is a dramatic way to spotlight the redistricting fight. By breaking quorum, they force the nation to ask, is this process fair? So, what exactly is in the Republican plan that has set off such a political firestorm in Texas? At the heart of the controversy is a sweeping proposal to redraw the state's congressional map, one that could reshape the balance of power, not just in Texas, but in Washington, D.C. as well. The new map is designed to give Republicans a significant advantage, potentially adding 5 more safe seats to their column in Congress. This would shift Texas's already conservative delegation even further to the right, making it much harder for Democrats to compete in future elections. If successful, this move could help the GOP solidify its slim majority in the U.S. House of Representatives, giving them a crucial edge in national politics. For Republicans, it's a chance to lock in their influence for years to come. The districts are drawn with such precision that political analysts say former President Trump would have won every single one by double digits. The lines are engineered to maximize Republican votes and minimize Democratic influence, leaving little room for competitive races. What's especially unusual is the timing of this redistricting effort. Texas already redrew its congressional lines after the 2020 census, as required by law. But now, just a few years later, Republicans are pushing to redraw the map again, mid-decade, outside the normal cycle. Democrats are calling foul, labeling the move a blatant power grab. They argue that changing the rules in the middle of the decade is an attempt to lock in control and shut out the voices of millions of Texans who may not agree with the ruling party. But Republicans counter that they're simply exercising the authority that voters gave them at the ballot box. They insist that redrawing the map is about ensuring fair representation and reflecting the will of the people. Supporters of the plan say the new map is a true reflection of Texas's conservative values and the state's political identity. They see it as a necessary step to protect their interests and keep Texas on its current path. Critics, however, see the redistricting as an aggressive maneuver to silence opposition voices and undermine the democratic process. They warn that it could set a dangerous precedent for other states to follow. For Republicans, the recent walkout by Democrats is just another example of refusing to accept defeat. But for many Texans, the battle over redistricting is about more than party politics. It's about the future of democracy in the Lone Star State. The new map uses classic gerrymandering tactics, packing and cracking, to reshape Texas politics. In South Texas, Democratic districts are redrawn to include more conservative areas, making them harder for Democrats to win. In cities like Austin and San Antonio, liberal voters are packed into a single district, forcing Democratic incumbents to compete against each other. Other urban neighborhoods are split and attached to rural Republican districts, diluting Democratic power. In Dallas-Fort Worth and Houston, diverse Democratic districts are carved up, making them more favorable to Republicans. Even safe Democratic seats are transformed into Republican-leaning districts. These changes target not just parties but the minority communities that drive Texas's growth. Critics call it a direct assault on urban and minority voting power. Both sides believe they're fighting for democracy. Democrats say the map is a rigged system, designed to silence Black and Hispanic voters who fueled Texas's growth. Civil rights groups argue the map violates the Voting Rights Act by denying fair representation to minorities. Republicans counter that they're following the law and reflecting the will of Texas voters. They insist the map is based on political data, not race. For Republicans, drawing districts is their right as the majority. Democrats' walkout, they argue, is an attack on the legislative process. The rhetoric is fierce and the stakes couldn't be higher. This isn't the first time Texas Democrats have fled to block Republican plans. In 2003, the Killer D's left for Oklahoma to stop a similar redistricting push, temporarily succeeding. Later, Democratic senators fled to New Mexico, but the effort ultimately failed and the GOP map passed. In 2021, Democrats walked out again to block new voting restrictions, flying to Washington, D.C. each time. The tactic delayed, but didn't stop Republican legislation. These walkouts highlight deep divisions and the limits of minority party power. History shows fleeing the state is a dramatic but rarely decisive move. The question now, will this time be any different? Beyond the politics, redistricting shapes real lives. When communities are split, their voices weaken. They struggle to elect someone who understands their needs. Minority groups who drove Texas's growth risk losing political power under the new map. Critics say the plan packs and cracks minority voters, capping their influence in Congress. This isn't just theory, it affects who fights for your schools, roads, and rights. If your representative doesn't share your concerns, you may feel voiceless. Meanwhile, urgent issues like disaster relief and public health are stalled by the legislative standoff. The human cost of this gridlock is real and immediate. As the standoff drags on, the future is uncertain. If Democrats stay away, the bill dies, for now. But the governor can call endless special sessions. The longer this lasts, the more pressure builds on Democrats to return. Even if Republicans pass the map, lawsuits will follow, likely reaching the Supreme Court. The outcome could shape not just Texas, but control of Congress and national policy for years. This fight is about more than maps. It's about the health of American democracy. Who should draw the lines, politicians or independent commissions? How do we ensure fair representation in a changing, diverse country? Texas's battle is a test of our democratic principles, the stakes, power, fairness, and the future of our nation.